Hello. Today we have a Celestial Nighthawk build that's incredibly fun to play with. Fast supers, virtually infinite throwing knives, radiant and restoration, and to top it all off, a cracked artifact that makes everything even better. The gameplay loop of this build is very simple. You want to get precision throwing knife kills, which will refund your throwing knife, allowing you to get more precision throwing knife kills. If you do actually run out of throwing knives, you want to get precision kills with your weapons to generate as much super energy as possible, as quickly as possible. Then obviously you want to use your super and repeat the cycle. So the super we'll be using is going to be Marksman Golden Gun, which deals increased precision damage, which is going to be great because obviously we're doing one high damage shot by using Celestial Nighthawk, so that's going to be buffed. This super allows us to chunk big targets very quickly, and in combination with Celestial Nighthawk refunds a large portion of our super energy on kills. So using this as often as possible is going to be only to your benefit. Onto our abilities. So Gambler's Dodge is the only mandatory option here. We'll be using this exclusively to refund our knife charge if we lose it. As this is a PvE build, I recommend Triple Jump, as this will make platforming sections loads easier. Obviously you can run whatever you want, but it's just my recommendation. So for the knife, I would recommend Weighted Throwing Knife, as this deals extra precision damage, and igniting any scorched target on hit is really fun. So there's that. It also has the added ability to refund the charge if you get a precision final blow, but every time you get a precision final blow, you're going to be radiant, as we'll see in a moment, so it's going to refund anyway. You can use really any of these apart from Knife Trick, just because these three can get precision kills, but this one cannot. So don't use Knife Trick, even though it is such a good throwing knife. Not in this build, I'm afraid. For the grenades, this really depends on a couple of things. You can really choose whatever you want, but for high-end content, I'm just going to recommend it. Healing Grenade. Getting restoration is going to be really useful. Being able to give restoration to your allies is going to be useful because of what we've got set up later on. But when you're in lower end content, I'd definitely say fusion grenades or any other type of grenade you like is going to be fine. Okay, moving on to aspects, we are running Knock 'em Down and On Your Mark, both of which perfectly synergize with this build. Obviously the main point of the build is to get as many precision final blows as you can, which is going to proc on your mark, and use your super as often as possible, which is buffed because of Knock 'em Down. The increased duration is going to make it easier for you to make sure that you get the precision hit, so that's literally amazing. But more importantly, it's going to refund your throwing knife if you kill something with a throwing knife while radiant. So both of these things are amazing. We love these. And they give you 5 fragment slots. Absolutely goated. Anyway, moving on to the fragments. There's only one of these that I would say is not mandatory, and I currently have the one that I think is probably not as important on, so I'm going to put on the one that I think should be, which is this one, but we'll get to that. Starting with the most important one, because I didn't put them in order, it's here. Ember of Torches. So this is how you're going to get radiant. As long as you hit with a throwing knife, you're going to get radiant, and your allies are going to get radiant, which means that any kill with the throwing knife is going to refund, because it will immediately become radiant as soon as it hits, meaning that it procs itself. So this is probably the most important one. Let's go on to this one, which is probably the second most important one, Empyrean. Now that's just going to give you a way to extend restoration and radiant. Now extending restoration is really all this is for, because you're going to have infinite radiant anyway, but you know, it could be useful sometimes if you're maybe moving between a group of enemies to another group of enemies and you kill something with a longer range weapon. That's going to extend the radiant as well. No complaints there, but this is the main thing you're going to need to stay alive. So searing is very important because this is how you're going to generate fire sprites, which is going to be one of the ways that we're going to take advantage of restoration through Ember of Mercy. It also gives you melee energy, so if you do lose your throwing knife, you're going to have a way to get it back. The fire sprites, as you'll see on the left, grant grenade energy. So this is going to be double-edged. Every time you get a fire sprite, you're also going to have got melee energy and grenade energy. So that's just really useful. So the other one is Ember of Mercy, which is just going to give you restoration from fire sprites and when you revive people, both of which are great. Just another way to get restoration. Mercy is also good when reviving, just because getting restoration as soon as you revive someone is just going to be clutch in those really dense situations and you need to res, so that's a really good pick. So the last fragment is Dealer's Choice, but I recommend either Benevolence or Ashes. Now, most of the time people would say that Ashes is a mandatory pick, just because the extra Scorch stacks is going to significantly increase how often you get ignitions. But I think that it's less important in this build, because any amount of Scorch is going to be ignitable with the weighted throwing knife. So you don't need to actually stack up the Scorch stacks to get the ignition. So I don't think that's important. What I do think is important is your abilities. So I'm going to put this on because I'm going to be giving Radiant to everyone basically every few seconds, and I can give Restoration and Cure if I'm running Healing Grenade super regularly. And that's a 400% increase, which is absolutely insane. So yes, please. But you can really run whichever you'd like. It's not really the end of the world. The main four are these four. Okay, armor. So I do not have a great setup for this build. Unfortunately, I do not have a great Celestial Nighthawk at the moment, so we're just running with it. In my opinion, the most important thing is to have at least 100 resilience. I would probably try and have as close to 100 discipline as possible. Don't really need strength. If it is something that worries you, definitely get more strength. But I would prioritise getting 100 resilience, 100 discipline, and then probably pumping as much into intellect as you can. But as long as you've got 100 resilience, the other stuff kind of is irrelevant, and it's based on whatever you prefer. In terms of the actual mods for the build, I feel like this is going to be pretty specific. There's probably going to be a few things you can change if you'd like, but this is what I'm running. Unfortunately, I'm running a lot of resilience on the mods because of particularly bad armor I have for this setup. So I'm using less than I would like, but let's go through them anyway. So obviously Harmonic Siphon, lots of solar kills, you need orbs, self-explanatory. I'm running double hands on because I'm trying to get as many melee kills as possible, and this actually stacks the Celestial Nighthawk's ability. So it doesn't say it on here, but Celestial Nighthawk now will give you super energy for precision kills, and that includes throwing knife precision kills. So you'll get the bonus from these mods and the bonus from the Celestial Nighthawk helmet. So 2 of these is going to be amazing. You could also run one and then an ammo finder of some kind. You could also run it with the dodge one, dodge near targets, because you're going to be doing that to get back your throwing knives when you lose it. But I'd recommend doing this just because in the ideal world, you're going to be getting as many of these as possible. For the arms, so I'm running fastball. This probably isn't optimal. It's useful, but it's definitely not something you need. I simply used it because I had 1 point left after the resilience. The other choice would be impact induction, which would obviously do the same thing as this, but for grenades. What I mean is it would be giving me grenade energy back from my melee attacks. So obviously, because I'll be using loads of melees, having the melees go into my other abilities is going to be useful. But this one, I would say focusing strike is the most important if you have to choose one, just because getting back your dodge is going to help you get back your throwing knife. So I'd prioritise that one if you had to fastball clutch like I did. Obviously heavy-handed to create orbs of power. Shame you can't create more than one every 10 seconds now, but it's going to do. Jest. Resist. Next, onto the legs. So I like Orbs of Restoration because it gives you ability energy to whatever's on the lowest at the moment, which is just going to be useful because it can be all of any of them, and it's going to give you the maximum it can. So I just think that's a really good one. The other 2 are always going to be 2 kinetic weapon surges, which is the maximum that you can buff your super with kinetic surges. Not sure what that's about, but as I understand it, 3 kinetic doesn't work, just stops working, and this is going to come in useful for some of the weapons later as well. For the class, I'm running Bomber, just because you don't need to do this for your melee. You're going to be getting your melee back, and it would just be a waste. Reaper for more orbs, because you can never have too many orbs. And time dilation, because obviously you want this for as long as possible. Now onto the weapons. I'll show you what I'm running. I'll talk about some things that other people are running. So this is what I chose to run. Isnagi's, self-explanatory, works with the kinetic surges that I have on the build. Crazy amounts of damage. and it's just a really nice thing to rotate in with bait and switch. I'm running Tyranny of Heaven because Incandescent is going to spread Scorch, and we love Scorch. Dragonfly is also crazy. This is a stupidly cracked bow, and it seems to be really easy to get precision hits with this thing, so I love it for that as well, because obviously precision kills are going to be what helps refund my super energy with Celestial. And then Reconstruction, bait and switch, we all know this, pretty standard. If you haven't got it, I highly recommend getting it. Otherwise, you're probably looking at a Heathen Vengeance or something else. There are definitely other weapons you can run, so don't feel like you have to run these. These are just what I like. But, you know, if you didn't want to use the exotic on this slot, you could use the Supremacy, probably rewind rounds 4 times a charm, or if not 4 times a charm, Kinetic Tremors. That's going to be a good combo that you can just swap into. Maybe if you're running that, then you can run Dragon's Breath, which is absolutely really good. Highly recommend that. And you're going to be able to shoot basically infinitely with the Supremacy, so waiting for the Dragon's Breath to recharge its stacks is going to be easy, because you can just shoot forever. Witherhoard, that's good as well. All of the standard solar weapons, so Amit, Callous Mini-Tool, Igneous Hammer, Sunshot, all goated. Eremite, Cartesian Coordinate, also goated if you're using like a kinetic primary rather than a solar primary. Skyburners is great as well, because obviously you are igniting people with your throwing knife, so because it always scorches on hit, well, on hip fire hit, that's just going to be useful if you want to constantly scorch people so you can ignite them. Another good option here, if you want to make sure that you're tripling down on precision everything, would be Briar's Contempt. That's going to be a good one, because you can get precision kills with that as well. So there's lots of options. This is what I run. Feels the most powerful to me, but, you know, you might hate bows. You know, there's so many reasons why you would want to run something different. But that's my main weapons. So the artifact is just cracked this season, for solar specifically. Don't know how they managed to make a stasis season actually a solar season, but fair play Bungie, you got balls. Anyway, you could use this build without the artifact, but since it's the end of the video, I'm just going to put the artifact mods in here because it would be stupid not to. It's literally insane. You can scorch anything just by hitting them. You can get radiant all the time. You can buff all of your supers damage. It's just insane. So let's just go through them. So you'll have radiant all the time, so you'll always be able to scorch people that aren't scorched, which means you'll be able to trigger ignitions by throwing your throwing knife at them. Absolutely cracked. This obviously is useful, but I'm not using any of these in this build, so that's just because I couldn't be bothered to untap every single thing in a row to take it off. This is Flint Striker, which obviously your point of this build is precision hits, so I don't know what to tell you, that just perfectly works. This is the most ridiculous thing ever, and we love this. We want more of this. I love you, Bungie, for this. Thank you. So, extra damage for every ally when you cast your super. So, let's say, hypothetically, you're doing the Kali Wish Farm, and you're doing the most used version of that, which is everyone running this build, basically. You're going to give all of your mates loads of orbs, and for every one of the people who are with you, it's going to buff the super. So, you're going to do it way quicker than you should. It's just goated. We love it. That's just going to get you back your super quicker. This is really interesting, and I love this one. Your solar ability is going to weaken champions, so you don't necessarily have to have tracked cannon or tether, so that's just cool. Overload rockets, we love overload rockets. Who doesn't love wasting a bunch of damage? Anyway, razor precision, that's also really good. More ignitions, thank you very much. And then Argent Ordnance, just because I'm personally running a rocket launcher. I'm sure you can guess which one. It's just very useful. Okay, drip check. I actually hate this chest piece and arm set from Des. For a really long time, I didn't want to wear it because I'm like, but it's got to be armor, not like I've just got out of bed and shoved on a hoodie and apparently now I'm going to Space War. But this shader is goated, so I decided I like it now. Just to show you which one. Beautiful.